Hello. Today we will discuss about the housing under the housing policy and planning, the legal and institutional framework under which every government at the central, state and local government works. Before we come to the contents of today's discussion, let me have a quick review of the earlier discussion. Last day we discussed about the housing policy at the central level and also at the state level. We have seen that at the central level several housing policies were made, like national housing and habitat policy, national rental housing policy, and right now all the state governments they are making the model, they are making the affordable housing policy for the states. Few states like Orissa and Haryana and few states they have already made, and we discussed about the state of Orissa case, where we have found that very innovative methods like creating shelter fund, involving private sector participation, everything was there for the housing policy and planning. Now today we will see that how all this policy and planning this works based on the some legal framework, because this is very important, because unless as a planner, as a professional, we do not know that what are the relevant acts and legislative provisions are there under which every policy and planning and the organization they work, it will be very difficult to action or take action in the ground level. So that is why we are spending today's discussion devoting fully on the legal part and the institutional organization at every level. So as you know that we have three tier of government at the central, and local, and every level of government has their own legal role followed by their action. Action in terms of policy, sometimes in terms of planning and execution. And they have various level of organization. At the central level, state level and local level. So this framework we need to understand in a greater details, so that we will discuss. Now at the central level, let us see first that what is the provision at the Constitution of India. If you see the Constitution of India, Article 243W, which is basically 12th schedule, where the constitutional provision is given for the role of the local government, where total 18 sections in the list were there, 18 jobs are listed. In section 2 it is written that regulation of land use and construction of buildings by the urban local bodies. Section 10, slum improvement and upgradation. Section 11, urban poverty alleviation, and section 12, provision of urban amenities and facilities such as parks, gardens, playgrounds, etc. So these are the there must be some spelling mistake. So these are the actions or the domain of work in related to housing construction and housing delivery at the local level, that is the urban local bodies, this local level. Similarly, if we go towards the central, towards the state level and central level, we will see that that in the Constitution of India there are two list. The first list is called the jobs of the central government. It is written as in the list 1 under the seventh schedule, the state government's work, which is listed at list 2, and the local government we have listed. So in list 1 and 2, if we find if you read that list, it is clearly written that land and related matters will be done by the state government by and large. So it can be understood that the housing is a matter of the state government, where central government also can participate, but state government and local government, who are the government who will be taking action at the ground level. So now let us see that what are the central acts and what are their roles at the central level. The recently this Constitution of India is there at the apex level. Under the Constitution of India there are several acts which are working, which is active in the country, which is basically influencing the housing development. One of such act is Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016, Land Acquisition Act, which is very basically is a very older act 1894, but recently in 2013 and 14 there is a amendment of Land Acquisition Act which is very much related to housing development. And before we come to role, let us talk you little bit of the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act. Under this Real Estate Act, the basic purpose of the Real Estate Act is to control the real estate development, in terms of creating transparency and accountability of the housing providers basically. Nowadays many common people they don't get their legitimate housing within the given committed time period, and after this act it is told that if beyond the committed time period the project takes much more time, so the housing provider, which is basically in the most of the cases the private developer, they have to provide the compensation as a rent. Not only that, whatever the facilities at the housing level or the built up area which is committed during the booking or during the initial registration, that should be maintained at the end in a transparent way, and all the built up areas and all the floor areas are written in terms of carpet area. Not only that, every private developer before developing any projects, they have to deposit some amount of money as a security deposit for the project, which will act as a security for the whole project for the prospective buyers of the units. So you can understand that this act basically gives a platform, gives a basis for bringing transparency and accountability in the housing construction and housing delivery. Whereas in the Land Acquisition Act, which is very very important, 1894, initially in the Land Acquisition Act it was very much controversial in terms of we have seen using the Land Acquisition Act, acquiring land becomes very difficult, and because of the difficulty the project becomes delayed. But recently in 2013 and 14, Government of India, they have brought out many amendments, including the taking the consent of the land owners in terms of social impact assessment, SIA, and based on the consent of the actual land owners, then only the land can be acquired by the authority. And also there are few specific areas where land can be acquired, there are few specific areas where land cannot be acquired, and these are the few amendments which the Government of India has brought. Later on, if time permits, we will discuss Land Acquisition Act in respect to the projects or the case study, but right now we can tell that these two are very important acts right now. One, controlling the land of for the housing; second, which is controlling about the delivery of the housing in terms of the transparency and accountability of the housing provider. So now let us see what is the role of the player who are acting under the central acts. So basically under the central act, Government of India, central government, they make the policy decision, policy direction, then streamlining of the funding through the state government at the local level, also facilitating land supply, and also creating a vibrant market, creating a very responsive market where every category of people can get the house, and also monitoring of the central scheme like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, like Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, Rajiv Awas Yojana, all the programs which we discussed earlier, central government as the apex organization, through their ministries they monitored all the progress. Similarly, right now Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is one of the flagship program under the government of India, by which government is trying to achieve housing for all. Not only that, the government of India they extend the handholding and capacity building, like creating model municipal bylaws or model state affordable housing policy for the state government and the local government, so that they are capable enough to develop their own methodology, develop their own strategy for the housing delivery at the local level, at the local context. So these are the roles which is executed, actions executed by the organization like the central ministry and the organizations working under the ministry like Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, the organization like BMTPC, Building Materials Technology Promotion Council, HUTCO. Similarly, some other organizations, they are working under this ministry, whose main job is to take these roles under the overall umbrella of the acts and the Constitution of India. Next, let us see what are the state acts and what are the organizations and what are their role. The Town and Country Planning Act is the mother act for framed by each state government, which basically controls the land and its planning for the future. So under this act, every state government they create the development authority. Sometimes they delegate the power to the local government to plan for the future, to make the future township and to extend the existing township and to extend the township for the future housing delivery. They also have the Land Registration Act, by which they register all the transaction of the land, conversion of the land and transfer of the hand of the land from one hand to another hand. Under this mother acts, they also frame the act for creating housing boards, whose job will be just to create more number of housing for each category of the economic group. Apart from that, every government sometimes they had Slum Clearance Act or Slum Improvement Act, which is basically aimed to sustain with a sustainability to rehabilitate or to improve the slum population or the squatter population. But depending on the government, these names and the scope of the acts can vary. For example, this is Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Authority. It is the apex organization under the government of Maharashtra. This is West Bengal Housing Board. This is Tamil Nadu Housing Board. These are the apex organization under the respective government who is working under the state act. Now let us see what is the primary job of these organizations. So their first job is to directly provide the housing for each category of housing like HIG, MIG, LIG and economically weaker section, and through the boards, through the development authority or through the municipal corporation, this housing can be delivered or be provided. Secondly, the streamlining of the fund and land acquisition. The fund received from the central government or from the international agency can be streamlined for at the local level to construct the housing, and also if required the land acquisition will be done by the housing board or the state government organization like say development authority or municipal corporation at the local level. Regional and urban planning to be done by the development authority. We have a very dedicated unit under this course for the regional and urban planning and how housing as a subject can play under the overall planning framework. So right now we are not going into that much of details. Later on we will come to the planning part of the housing under the overall planning framework. So this is very important. Facilitating land management and housing market. We have told you that land is a very important input for creating large amount of housing, and Land Acquisition Act and other relevant acts are there. So one of the major role of the state government organizations are to create to supply more amount of land to manage the land in a scientific way, so that the land can be distributed for a great variety of the people. Everybody gets the legitimate right of the land in terms of the land or in terms of the property. So that is one of the major objective of the state level organizations. After that, they also facilitate the institutional reform. It is not sufficient to act under the policy through the funding or through the land or creating the land. It is also important to create effective institutions, effective organization who can deliver housing, who can deliver services in a quicker time with much more efficiency, much more competence. So that is only possible if every institution have a legitimate growth, and they through the set of reforms. That is another work which is to be done at the state level by each and every organization. After that, every state government and state government organization like housing board or the area development authority, they have a typical policy for the public private partnership, so that under the overall umbrella of the government, the private party can come and then they can work for delivery of the housing within overall umbrella of the government. So these are the state acts and the roles. So after discussing the central acts, state acts, and now let us see the local level acts, organizations and the roles. So local level organizations means basically municipal corporation, development authority, nagarpalika or municipality or even nagar panchayat. So their basic role will be to control the development through the building bylaws, building regulation and land use control, so that the overall housing or the city gets a desired shape. So that is the local, sometimes this building development control is framed under the Town and Country Planning Act, but also the local level organizations like say municipality or municipal corporation, they can frame their own regulation. So their role will be to construct the houses for the poor and the lower income group and also middle income group. Also linking livelihood and infrastructure with the overall housing. I have told in the beginning that housing is not house absolutely. It has the linking of the livelihood and infrastructure. So it is one of the very important role of the local level organization to have a convergence of all the central sponsored schemes and the programs by central government and the state government towards a common objective, so that there is minimum conflict with the programs and housing projects are executed in convergence with the livelihood program and the infrastructure development. Executing central and state scheme under the various scheme, like right now Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana technology submission, earlier it was Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, Rajiv Awas Yojana. So under all this flagship scheme, this local government they get fund from the central government through the state government. So executing those projects and schemes directly is another very important job of the local level organization. And also based on the overall PPP framework done by the state government, their job is to execute the PPP framework with a more transparency and accountability at the local level. And also when the projects is done, continuous feedback and continuous evaluation is a part of the housing delivery, because without the feedback and without the evaluation the whole process of housing delivery may not be successful. So that is one of the role of the local level organizations. But one practical problem of the local level organizations are that in spite of so much accountability is delegated to the local level organization, their capacity is not enough to deliver all these actions which is listed here, and apart from these actions also there are multifarious actions which they can deliver because of the lack of sometimes manpower, because of sometimes lack of the office infrastructure or equipment. So due to this reason, one of the limitations, one of the shortcomings at the local level is that in spite of the acts and regulation and the legal setup, the ground level execution work is delayed, slow, and sometimes they do not get the desired outcome, desired impact at the ground. So that is one of the problem. Now let us see the overall framework in a in a complete overall this thing, so that we can understand the overall hierarchy. So, central government, state government and local government, these are the acts and legal framework. We have talked about this Constitution of India, Land Acquisition Act, Developers Act, and also other than the Land Acquisition Acts and Developers Act, there are other related acts like environment related acts, infrastructure and related acts, which are also applicable for the housing development. It is not only the housing or the real estate act, it is also the other acts which are also influencing all these parameters. Based on this legal frame, the central government, they frame national urban housing and habitat policy. Recently they have done urban rental housing policy. The organizations working, as I told before, is National Housing Bank, Building Material Technology Promotion Council, HUDCO or Hindustan Prefab Limited. These organizations are working under the ministry. Apart from the ministry, there are various organizations which are kind of PSU or the NGOs. They are also working at the apex level, sometimes in association with the ministry if it is required time to time, and their role, as I told, is basic role is to facilitate the state level and the local level and the market players to generate more housing. That is the major role. Apart from the facilitating role, their role is to streamline the funding, the central fund and also sometimes the international funding, and also time to time to monitor the centrally funded schemes. So, that is the basic role of the central level organization. After that, if you come to the state level, where the basic acts as Town and Country Planning Act, Municipal Act, I have already told about this, Slum Clearance Act. Their basic role is to frame the state affordable housing policy, PPP policy and also land policy for the state government, and they have this kind of organization like Department, Directorate of Housing, Urban Development, Housing Boards, Directorate of Town and Country Planning, State Planning Board, and also there are developers organization who are very important stakeholder of the housing delivery. So, they work in association with the state government organization sometimes, and their role is to enable the market, to enable the local government so that they can execute more number of projects, and also they implement the housing projects for the various income groups through the housing board or the directorate of housing. That also a very important job of the organization at the state level. Then we come to the local level organization. Local level organization, they frame, I told you already, the local building bylaws. At the local level, we know that every city is supposed to frame the city development plan, but after the city development plan, they are supposed to make the housing strategy, master plan, slum free city plan, land banking strategy at the local level, so that each and every municipality or the city, they are clear and they can understand that how much land is available with the city, with the municipality, so that they can generate more amount of housing. So, organizations working at the local level is development authority, municipal corporation, sometimes special purpose vehicle, like last day we talked about some project development agency or some other special purpose vehicle can be created by the state government or the central government, particularly for the purpose of the housing and the infrastructure development. And also at the local level, various NGOs are working for the housing for the poor or the basic amenities for the poor, and needless to mention that private developers, they are also working at the ground level, directly providing the housing for the poor people. So, apart from the central and the state government, the local level government's work is to basic work largely is to implement the project, whereas we have seen for the central government it is a facilitating role, enabling role, and here their role is to implementation, and also time to time get the feedback and evaluation. So, this is the overall framework of the legal hierarchy, the policy and planning hierarchy, what kind of policy and planning they do at the different level. These are the organizations, how they work, and these are the role or action of the each organization at different level. So, based on that, now let us discuss what are the issues we should look into, and what are the issues we should keep in our mind before we come to the next level of discussion of the planning for the housing. The first issue is the capacity at the local level organization for strategizing the housing. The municipal corporation or the municipality, they are working at the local level, but sometimes their capacity is not enough to conceptualize in a comprehensive way the whole housing requirement for the another 5-10 years. Sometimes they go for piecemeal approach instead of going into the comprehensive approach. So that is another problem. Sometimes they lack manpower, sometimes they lack technical manpower. So that is very important point. Recently Government of India, through their capacity building for urban local bodies, they are trying to improve their capacity through training and capacity building, so that they can deliver more amount of work, more amount of housing and infrastructure development at the ground. Then second is the institutional convergence. We have seen that at various hierarchies, central, state and the local level, many organizations are working. There are organizations working for providing housing, there are organizations who are working for providing basic amenities like water supply, road like PW, CPWD, and the infrastructure development company, electricity company, they are working. It is also problem sometimes that we do not get the convergence of each government department at the state level, central level or local level. So it takes some time, little delay, more time for executing a project. So how the convergence can be there at the each level of government, that is one of the very interesting subject to study. One of the solution which was discussed before it last 10-15 years, that e-governance or the concept of e-governance can be used to bring the convergence in the work of the governmental organization, and hopefully within coming years we will get the benefit of the governance in terms of the convergence of all the schemes and the departmental functioning. And effective efficient service delivery of housing infrastructure. It is told that housing is not only the house or the building or the structure, it essentially needs the infrastructure and the services, and infrastructure and services is delivered by different organization. So effective delivery in a sustainable basis, quality supply of water, quality supply of electricity and the drainage, solid waste management or disposal, this kind of facility, sanitation is essential for its efficient service delivery, which is required for the housing. And also we have seen that housing construction, the development controls, the local development controls or the building bylaws, which are sometimes ignoring the local controls, people sometimes, especially the private developer, they do lot of malpractices and they just violate the rule and they go for unauthorized construction. So for this reason, government organizations at the local level, municipality, development authority, housing boards, they need to be more stronger in taking action against all this unauthorized construction, because the unauthorized construction violating the development controls bring the slum like situation in any city. So that is not desirable, it is not intended. So these are the broad issues. Apart from that, there are local contextual issues related to legal aspect, like related to laws, land, related to finance. So we are not going into that details, but we should keep at least some broad issues before we come to the next level of discussion. So before I tell you about the next day's discussion, just let me sum up quickly. Today we discussed the legal and the institutional framework at different level, central, state and the local level. We have seen that the central and state level actions or the roles are listed in the Constitution of India, where basically it is seen that land and housing is primarily a job of the state government, and construction and the execution of the housing project is also termed as the job of a local government as per the Constitution of India. After that, we have seen what are the different kind of acts, major acts which are working at the central level, state level and the local level. Under those acts, what are the policy and planning arrangements or policy or planning elements or tools which are working, and what are the organizations working under that, and what are the major role. To summarize, the central government organizations, they work largely for facilitating the overall housing market and delivery. State government organizations largely they work to enable the market, in creating more land, in creating more finance, in creating the private participation in the housing delivery. And local level organization, including the housing boards and the development authority, they work basically for the implementation, for provision of the housing at the local level for every category of the housing. And major issues are the capacity building, institutional convergence, service delivery and the development control or the violation of the development controls at the local level. So, next day we will discuss about the another very important aspect of the overall housing delivery, that is land. We will discuss about the land supply and its management in the next class. Thank you.